Everything is over. Everything has collapsed. It flashed through his mind. The Union is destroyed, countless lives lost, and I am to blame for everything. Final entry of the Zenith of Time, the beginning of the end. Gordan moved with great difficulty, limping through the ruins of the city he had failed to save. After all, he had failed to save anyone, not even himself. He was on the main planet, in the capital city of the Union, a beautiful city just a few days ago, and now, ruins. Former avenues had been turned into torn canyons of concrete and metal. The communications tower, the symbol of the city, lay toppled like a felled giant. Smoke was still rising from the cracks, and the air smelled of burned plastic, ozone, and death. His Alpha Fighter had been completely destroyed, and he had barely saved his life during the crash, and that only thanks to the energy shields that enveloped him but did not fully protect him. Every step was pain, every breath a struggle. But the hardest part were the thoughts. In his mind, he returned to the day when everything began. They had summoned him to the main command. The Admiral and the Chief Dignitary looked at him seriously. Sergeant Gordan, from this moment, you hold the rank of captain and have been selected for a mission of crucial importance. You are aware that in recent years, an increasing number of so-called coincidences have been occurring. The enemy knows all our movements, our communications, shield codes, and who knows what else. We suspect a severe breach of security in all military and civilian installations. Betrayal from the top. Yes, that's what they were saying, Gordan thought bitterly, with a grain of his famous mockery and cynicism. He dragged himself into a part of the city where there were piles of destroyed hover vehicles. Once symbols of speed and luxury, now they were only scorched shells. He saw civilians fleeing, women, children, the elderly, panicked looks, screams. He knew he could not help them, if only he had succeeded in the mission. But who could have believed that the traitors were those who were supposed to protect them? Yes, the traitors were at the very top of the Union. The chief dignitary who expected a reward from the enemy for betrayal, the admiral who wanted to eliminate the chief, establish an empire, and become the future emperor, and a host of others at the very top, who had been bribed or blackmailed and feared for their own lives and the lives of their loved ones. All the time they had led him onto false trails, given him incorrect information, worked to destroy him, yet in the end he did find out the truth. Only, all this knowledge came too late, thought the embittered Gordan. He stopped by a destroyed vehicle and cast a glance at his wounds. Blood was seeping through the bandage. This is not good, he knew in advance. Encounter in the ruins, he no longer knew where he was going. After a long time of which he was no longer even aware, he staggered into a part of the city known as the creme de la creme, where the most influential and wealthiest members of the Union lived. At that moment he heard a quiet beeping. It resembled a restrained sob or a desire to scream. Then the person saw him. "Don't shoot, there are women and children beside me. We are just civilians. We are rich. Don't hurt us and it will pay off many times over." This voice sounded familiar to him, very familiar. "Oh, don't tell me," he suddenly remembered and rose from cover. "Mr. Olaf and much more." Despite all the suffering, Gordan smiled. The panicked fear disappeared from Olaf's face. "Flyboy, is that you?" Gordan did not expect what followed. Olaf rushed forward and hugged him like an old best friend. "Wow, wait, I thought you couldn't stand me?" Gordan said with a smile. Mr. Olaf raised his tearful face. "After so many days of suffering and bombardment, you are balm to the eyes. Come, I'll introduce you to the others." Gordan approached. Children were pressed close beside Mr. Olaf. Next to them stood women, obviously mothers and relatives, armed with weak laser pistols, with determined expressions on their faces to protect the youngest at all costs. "This is my wife, her two sisters, mother, and this is my mother and sister. These three are my children, and the others are the children of my wife's sisters. The fathers joined the defense forces." He was introducing them to Gordan. "Only we survived in this part of the district. The others perished or fled to other parts of the city." "How did you manage to endure so many days without supplies?" Gordan asked. "We have a small hideout next to the destroyed palace where we lived, with a food replicator. That's what has kept us alive so far," Olaf replied. Olaf led Gordan to the hideout. It was much more spacious than Gordan had imagined, realizing that the word small did not have the same meaning for him and Mr. Olaf. There is also a garage here. My hobby is collecting ancient vehicles that run on fossil fuels. Something you and Ralde have in common? Gordan thought wistfully. I wonder what happened to him and the star? We'll take a look at your wounds, one of the women said in a pleasant voice. Meanwhile, at the same time, the cruiser Aurelian Star was heavily damaged. Small JB series androids were tirelessly working on repairing it. There were far fewer of them than just a few days earlier, when the general attack began. They heroic repaired the ship amid salvos from the enemy, which cost them dearly. Many were torn apart by plasma jets and many destroyed by laser fire. But they did not stop. They did not surrender. Captain Ralde was seriously wounded. Engineer Loa had been killed, as well as many officers and pilots. Only the utterly exhausted Vina remained, with a handful of junior officers to command what was left of the cruiser. Almost all Alpha fighters had been destroyed. They launched from the cruiser until the launch bay was completely destroyed and until they were left with almost no pilots. They fought bravely to the last operational craft. What do we do now? Vina thought feverishly. The captain is seriously wounded while he was alone on the bridge guiding the cruiser and the others. She remembered the alarm, the screams, the deaths, and the shouting. She remembered, "Captain! Captain!" It echoed panic-stricken. "The energy shield of our ship has collapsed. Energy beams are hitting us directly. Where is the answer? Where is salvation?" raced feverishly through his mind. Alpha rift, inverse phase shifting, wormhole. "Captain! Captain! Captain!" Vina thought about everything that had happened in that short time. Now it was clear to everyone that they had been betrayed, and at the highest level. When the order came that all military ships must gather at that point in space for a military exercise, Captain Ralde did not comply. He knew that something was seriously wrong, and he was right. That was where the enemy struck the hardest. The cruiser, along with dozens of other ships that Captain Ralde had persuaded not to obey this order, rushed to help. But it was too late. At one moment, the bridge was almost destroyed. Loa was at the ship's engines and ordered her entire engineering team to withdraw while she herself controlled the damaged machinery. "Loa, get out of there!" the captain shouted into the communicator. "The shields have fallen around the engine section. The next hit." "No, Captain?" Loa interrupted him calmly. "You know yourself that the automation is gone and that I have to do this." "Loa," Ralde said quietly. "I know," she said with a tear in her eye. "You were like a son to me. I am proud of you." And then, a flash. They blew up the engines together with her. Ralde groaned in pain. He sent the entire crew to a more or less safe part of the ship, while he himself, with the help of small robots, handled navigation. Even though he no longer had engines, he managed, through intense fire combined with phase shifting and thrusters, to destroy a large number of enemy craft and save many allied ships. The enemy eventually began to retreat, but not before directing one more, the strongest attack at the Aurelian Star. The secondary shields and the ship's hull finally gave way. The explosion hurled the captain away. At that moment, a small android marked 128 grabbed the wounded captain and pulled him toward the exit before it sealed hermetically. At the last moment, it shoved him through the passage but failed to save itself. The doors literally cut the JB-128 unit in half. So much suffering, so much heroism. And why? The utterly exhausted Vina asked herself. The Union has fallen, despite everything. In Mr. Olaf's hideout, they were dressing Gordan's wounds. Thanks to Merla's knowledge, that was Olaf's sister's name, the pain was significantly reduced. All that time they talked. It did Gordan good to ease his soul. Eventually they came to the question of what had caused all this. He told her everything. There was no longer any point in secrecy. After all, everything was clear. Yes, my task was to uncover the traitors. It was given to me to throw dust in the eyes of those who were asking more and more questions and to ease the growing suspicions. I discovered what was happening, but too late, and by then the great attack had already begun, and the rest you know. Gordan spoke in a resigned voice. It's not your fault, Merla said gently. You did everything you could. But that wasn't nearly enough. My failure resulted in the fall of the Union. Rest and don't think about what could not be changed, Mirla said softly. Mr. Olaf approached them. We need to somehow move to the upper part of the city where I have my secondary residence. It's very far from here, more than 1,000 kilometers. There I have a small, well-hidden ship that we can use to get out of here. The problem is that we can't walk that long with small children, and especially since we'd be bombarded again at any moment. Gordan thought, what would my friend Ralde do in my place? Hovercraft vehicles are almost all destroyed, and even if we find one, we can't supply it with energy since the main power grid is destroyed. Think, Gordan, think. At one moment, he remembered happier times, when during a bout of drinking that later cost him a promotion, he and his friend had talked about the alcohol he had poured into himself, and then broken the jaw of a lieutenant who dared to forcibly push a girl into dancing. He remembered Ralde's words, "You've drunk so much hard liquor that you could fill the tank of a truck with one of those old liquid fuel engines." What booze could be used as fuel for those ancient clunkers of yours? Gordan asked drunkenly, to which he received a confirming answer. They laughed about it together then. At one moment a light went on in Gordan's head. Strong liquor, old vehicles, liquid fuel engine. Olaf, he called. You said you collect vehicles from early periods when engines ran on liquid fuel. Yes, that's true, he told him, but unfortunately we don't have fuel for them. You said you have a food replicator. It can't replicate their fuel. Yes, but it can replicate drinks. What's the strongest thing you have on offer? Plum rakia, double distilled, almost 80% alcohol, for killing brain cells, Olaf laughed. Okay, tell everyone to get ready. We're leaving. After some time, the rakia was replicated. They chose an ancient bus that had been carefully preserved and that had a hand crank to start the engine, since the batteries were unusable after so many centuries. The tanks were filled with strong liquor, the preservation removed, and after prolonged cranking, the engine coughed and started. Here Mr. Olaf's knowledge came in handy, as he knew how to operate this ancient vehicle. They traveled for hours through the destroyed city. They got onto a road where they barely avoided wrecked vehicles. After a long time, they managed to reach the part of the city where Mr. Olaf's hacienda was located. It was ruined like the rest of the city. Did we travel in vain? Gordan asked. No, look, Olaf told him, approaching a spot in the huge courtyard. He pulled a small remote from his pocket and pressed his finger on the display. The ground split apart, revealing a small landing pad with a craft ready for flight. There's plenty of room in it, Olaf said with a hint of pride from earlier days. We'll search to see if there are any more survivors nearby, and then we go, Gordan said. They managed to find a few more people who had been hiding. They were starving and exhausted, utterly worn out, frightened, but alive. We're leaving, Gordan said, and they took off. Many dots appeared on the radar. Those are ships, Gordan said quietly. Survivors. There are many of them. How did they manage? They managed to contact one of the refugee ships and learn the truth. Thanks to the information network initiated by Captain Ralde, they were able to evacuate in time, before the enemy bombardments. Good old Ralde, Gordan thought. He always thought of others, even in this hopeless situation. He managed to save so many lives. At that moment, only one message arrived on the hyperchannel, perhaps the most important of all. To all survivors, this is Lieutenant Vina of the Aurelian Star. We are sending you the coordinates of our cruiser. Together, we will find a place to live, but it is up to you to decide about your lives and whether you will follow us. I report that our Captain Ralde is seriously wounded but has survived. His medical condition is improving. Gordan nodded sadly. It's over with the Union. Now it's up to us to survive and build a new life. Mr. Olaf, I am sure you will agree with me when I say that it is best to follow the Aurelian Star in the search for our new home. Olaf agreed. Of his immense wealth, only this ship remained. But he was happy to be with his family. There was no greater wealth than that. The ships joined into one large formation. The great majority decided to follow the Aurelian Star, and the captain who had shown himself to be exceptionally brave, intelligent, and a man worthy of trust. For now, they were happy simply to have survived. End of the space entry, Zenith time. Phoenix time, a new beginning. Mr. Ulaf's vessel joined the other ships, while below them remained the planet that no longer had a name, only a number on enemy maps. Gordan sat in the pilot's chair, his gaze fixed on the holographic display of the ship formation slowly gathering around the Aurelian Star. Each of those signals was proof of life. Each ship, an entire story. The children slept, exhausted. The women spoke quietly. Ulaf checked the instruments with some old, almost forgotten calm of a man who once had control over the world and was now grateful for mere survival. Gordan was thinking about the Union, about mistakes, about Ralde. Aurelian Star, Infirmary. Captain Ralde lay in a regenerative chamber. His body was crisscrossed with burns, his skeleton reinforced with temporary implants. His face was calm but exhausted. Vina stood beside him, her hands clenched. "He got us out," she said quietly. The medical android nodded. The chances for a full recovery are good. It will take time." Vina felt her throat tighten, this time not from fear, but from relief. Alliance of the survivors. In the days that followed, the ships organized themselves. There was no union, there were no ranks as they had known them, but there were people. Vina convened a council, captains, engineers, civilians. Gordan spoke about the betrayal, without concealment, without ranks. "If we are going to build something new," he said, "we must begin with the truth." Everyone agreed with that. When Ralde woke up for the first time, he asked only one thing. "Did they make it?" Vina smiled. "They did, and they are waiting for you." Ralde closed his eyes. The new alliance made a decision. The Zenith measurement of time ended together with the fallen Union. But a new measurement was just beginning. Phoenix. Epilogue. Somewhere far away, among stars that still had no names, a formation of ships with a cruiser at its head changed course. It was not a fleet. It was a people. There was no more double-dealing, betrayal, deceit, evil. For the first time in so long, social status was not important. Everyone was united in finding a place they would call their new home. And for the first time since the fall of the Union, the future did not seem like a threat. It was a promise of a better and more just life. End of entry for Space Date Phoenix 00-001.